Dating a professional or powerful woman can be intimidating. And actually, some men avoid engaging in these types of relationships. But what they don't know is they could actually be missing out on a true blessing.
Welcome to Saying Yes Again,
A podcast about second chances, real love, and opening your heart after heartbreak.
We're your hosts, Dr. Lisa
And Tony,
a midlife couple who found love after divorce. And now we're here to share our story.
and to remind you that it's never too late to say yes again.
So put on your headphones and listen closely, because your next yes could be the one that changes everything.
Welcome back to Saying Yes Again. I'm Tony, and today to my right, I have my significant other.
Your significant other? Is that all that I am, honey?
You're my co-host as well, right? Dr. Lisa. How you doing today, babe?
I'm doing fabulous. I love being the co-host and sitting in the co-host seat.
Well, I like your jacket.
Do you?
Is there a special occasion today?
No, not really. I just thought I would try something different. You actually picked this out. Do you remember?
I do remember. I pick out 90% of your clothes.
Don't tell the audience everything.
They
Okay?
needed to know that.
You do have a good fashion sense, so you do pick out some of my things. This is one of my favorite jackets, too.
I also put on my jean jacket, you guys.
I see. You're trying to match my energy.
No, the house is extremely cold today.
Don't start that.
I think we talked about that, right?
Don't even start that.
But anyways, let's dive right on in.
Let's dive in.
Yes, I think it's going to be really good today.
So this conversation, I think, is important. It comes up a lot,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And I'm sure that there are some women out there who actually would love to hear about the man's perspective, and maybe even hear a little bit about my perspective as well
Yes,
in the
yes.
dating arena.
Are men afraid to date powerful and professional women? I know this is going to be a good hot topic for her. Right, babe?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great topic. So the answer to that question is, I think yes. For some men, I'm not going to say all men, but
Mm.
definitely for some men. I've seen it with my friends.
Have you?
I've honestly experienced it myself, before we
Mhm.
started dating. And sometimes they can get intimidated, by dating a professional woman. That once they find out that, you're in those professional roles, you're a CEO, you're a business leader, you're a doctor or a lawyer, or in any leadership role, the room sometimes, or the atmosphere even shifts a little bit.
Definitely does. Definitely does. I've been privy to be in some male circles, and oftentimes guys simply just they don't want to deal with it. They assume that it's going to be challenging, controlling, you know, um, and they just quite often don't want to go down that route. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most men, in my mind, and obviously being a man, a lot of who they are, their identity, etc., is a function of their job, the classification of their job, how much money they make.
Mm.
And to a certain degree, they like to be the head of the household. They like to be the person who sets the tone and the atmosphere to a certain degree. And when you come in contact with a powerful woman, like you said, CEO, doctor, lawyer, etc., you can't give them those material things. They oftentimes have their own assets, they have the status, etc. So that could be intimidating to some gentlemen, right?
Yeah, it definitely can. Especially like you said, talking about the, dynamic shift in terms of the power dynamic, right? So
Mhm.
now this professional woman is like, the head of her organization, or she's at the top of her
Mm.
game. She may even make more money, than her partner.
Oh, yes,
So a lot of times, that is very intimidating and can
definitely.
sometimes shift the dynamics in a relationship.
Definitely.
So
Definitely. I could see where that would shift the dynamics in the relationship. You are a powerful woman in your own right, but that's never intimidated or threatened me. But like you said, I've been comfortable in terms of who I am and etc. My profession, where I sit, you know, with having my ducks in a row, for
Mhm.
lack of a better term. So it doesn't really make me feel intimidated. And
Yeah.
the awesome thing about it is that I feel like I've taken on a tremendous teammate where we complement one another.
Aw.
And so we become kind of, for lack of a better term, a power couple to a certain degree. So I think more gents need to kind of look at it from that perspective. Right, babe?
Yeah, definitely. I think, men need to think about not so much the title, right, of the woman, not
Mm-hmm.
so much about how much she makes, but
Mm-hmm.
about what she's bringing to the table. What does that look like when the two of
Mm-hmm.
you actually, come together?
Yes.
How much further can you go together, like you said, as a team?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, I think we need to kind of put aside titles and put aside, paychecks and all those other things and think about how we show up as individuals, how we show up as people.
Yes, 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 definitely. So I'd like to tell the gentleman some other things. When I walk in a room with you, you command the attention of the room, but that does not threaten me, right? I
Mhm.
actually adore it when you sashay into a room and capture the undivided attention of everybody in the room. It doesn't bother me because I know that I too can capture the attention of a room as well. But I just basically feel like when you're winning, I'm winning. We're both
Yeah,
winning,
absolutely. I
right?
think that's, and like you said, it doesn't bother you, right? When we walk into a room together, and if it happens to be, something that has to do with my industry, and maybe I'm capturing the attention of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important for women to have someone with them that is very supportive of what they do so that they can show up and be the best, and show up as their best selves in their professions. They don't feel like they have to dim their light. They don't feel like they have to kind of, scale back
Mm-hmm.
because that can really sometimes hurt them in the professional setting if they feel like they have to keep going back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm showing up as my best version of myself at work, but then when I come home, I got to scale it like all the way back. I'm not saying that we should show up in our homes, with the whole CEO mindset or
Yes.
bring that into the house
Leave
dynamic.
that at the job, please, babe.
Yes, but we also, want our partners to support us when we have to kind of take on that mindset and that role.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like we say, some men are afraid of dating powerful women, but there are other men who are not. Um, and they're excited in terms of being a team builder. As we
Mhm.
indicated, their ego is not a function of their status in the open market, etc. So there's no infighting. The spotlight is on both of you guys,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think of that if we can sort of just kind of quell that ego,
Mm,
that probably would help a lot. Now, there's a lot of things that the women have to do on her side as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do feel like if we could definitely, work on maybe, breaking down the walls of feeling like you have to, have this macho ego that shows up in
mm.
relationships, that it can help sort of bridge that gap.
Macho ego. I'm kind of feeling like you're implying that we as men, we just automatically bring this macho ego to the table. Is
So
that what you're
I don't,
saying?
and truth be told, I don't think it's something that a lot of men do intentionally. I think it's something that they feel
Wow.
like they have to do because of what society says, about them as a man or how they need to show up as a man, right?
Mm, mm,
In the world and also in a relationship.
mm,
So I think it's a relearning, of what it really means to be a man in a relationship, right? It's not really tied to your title. It's not tied to your paycheck, although you do want to be a provider, absolutely. But, who you are as a person is not tied to that,
mm.
right? So there are other things. They're your values, it's your
Yes.
character,
Yes.
it's your support. It's like, how do you show up for other people? Like those things are really important.
Mm. I think to a certain degree, though, babe, with all due respect, we have to have a little bit of an ego, just an ounce of an ego to deal with these CEOs, lawyers, doctors, and everything. I mean, because your dominant trait is exercised throughout 90% of your day. So
Mhm.
by default, you bring a little bit of that home, right? Of course, you don't do it, but you bring a little bit of that home. So we have to have some sort of an ego, right? To a certain degree.
I mean, so and I do bring it home sometimes, you don't have to sugarcoat
Yes,
it.
she does. I'm so glad you I'm so glad you admitted to it. Yes, she does.
Yes, I do. Sometimes it's hard to shut off, right? Because you are, that's sort of where your set point is, right? It's where your intellect is, it's kind of where you live, most of the day. It's the conversations that
Yes.
you're having. So sometimes it is hard to turn, or you have to work at it, right? Turning it off.
Mhm.
Or at least, sort of making sure that you don't bring that into the relationship. So
Yes.
yes, it is difficult. So should men have a little bit of an ego? I think that men should just have what it takes for them to be head of their household, if you want to put it
Mm,
that way.
mm,
And also knowing that that woman is also your partner in that,
mm.
and that would really quell, I think, the ego.
Oh, wow. Just beautifully said.
Mhm.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
I think also if you're out in the open market executing your dominant traits 90% of the time and giving your very, very best while you're on stage as far as the employment situation is concerned, when you come home, you should equally be on stage,
Mhm.
right? You've given 90% of your best when you come home,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But anyways, so fellas, so basically what we're saying is don't fear, don't dumb yourself down, feel good as to who you are. And for lack of a better term, don't block the blessing.
Yeah.
Ladies, don't dim your light. Continue to shine. Continue to be the best CEO that you can be. Lawyer, doctor, physician, or whatever profession you actually operate in. Okay, because the correct person is gonna come soon, right?
Mhm.
Just like I did
Absolutely.
for you, right, babe?
Yeah.
But anyways, we also would like to talk about a few tips that will help you guys deal with these professional women, right? Being supportive. A lot of times, I'll speak as far as Lisa's concerned. A lot of times, she goes to these business engagements and she receives these accolades. And I know, babe, that they're just normal for you. You've probably been doing it for a lifetime, but I do try to make a special situation to edify her achievements. Just because I feel like one, it's unique, it's tremendous, and two, you know, so I'm your husband, I'm your significant other. Supposed to support you. So I'm gonna applaud you right on the podcast, okay? S-
Thank you.
So furthermore, just be yourself. Be exactly who you are. I am a car salesman. We've mentioned that in one of our other podcasts. I have been one for 25 years. Opposites attract, right? We spoke about that. I stay in my bubble, right? I try to be who I am, but I also try, like we just mentioned, be supportive of my wife. Also, let's embrace their mindsets, right? In our situation, my wife is very academically astute. She has the common sense aspect covered as well. So she's extremely sharp. I am sharp as well, but you know, if that person is the nucleus as far as the intellect and the business knowledge or whatever is concerned, then we might want to maybe have things in order when she gets home, right? We might be strategic. So yes, so let's just be flexible, caress this mindset, be supportive. I think those are a few tips that will go a very long way.
Yeah.
How am
I
I
like
do-
those.
how am I doing, babe?
No, I think those are great tips. I
Okay.
mean, I think especially the part about being flexible, right? Because I think that you do have to understand that a woman or a man, sometimes it could be on the man side, but we're talking about women, in this particular podcast.
Yes. Yes.
So, and a lot of times when we have those roles, we don't have normal schedules,
No.
right? The 9 to 5 is like out the window. So, for the most part, but
Yes, yes.
so for a man who might be in a relationship with the woman and maybe, they're more leaning towards a traditional sort of work schedule, professional women sometimes don't have that, right? And it does take a little bit of flexibility from the partner to understand, that that work schedule can be different, right? So
Yeah.
how do you work together to make sure that you're finding
Mhm.
time for each other and that you're supporting each other in that?
You communicate. Lisa and I communicate. She has a very challenging schedule, but we communicate. I also have a challenging schedule. So, it's worth it. So we're gonna make it fit right on in.
Mhm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
any other comments, honey?
No, I think your tips were spot on, and hopefully it'll help somebody who's out there who might in the past maybe have strayed away from approaching a woman who fits that, characteristics of being in a particular profession.
Mm,
And maybe
yes,
it's those
yes.
things will be useful.
One thing she doesn't like when I do this, but I'm gonna step out on a limb. One thing that I'm tremendously curious about, babe, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching the podcast today are probably curious about as well. How do you professional ladies feel when these gentlemen are apprehensive about approaching you or whatever, they just assuming that your livelihood or lifestyle is occupied with a gentleman or you're married or whatever? Just a small tidbit because I know we're going to probably do a continuation of this podcast. How do you
Yeah.
ladies feel?
I mean, it can be frustrating,
Yeah.
because I think we want to be seen for who we are and not what our
Yes.
titles are.
Good point.
We want to be seen for what we bring to the table, our values.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be seen for our authenticity, the other things that kind of
Yes.
make us who we are. So it's frustrating when the first thing that a man sees when they learn about you as whoever you are in your profession, the first thing they see is that title or
The
the fact that you're going
status.
to be right within this particular professional arena. So it's frustrating. It can be
Good
very
point.
frustrating.
Did you hear that, gentlemen? They are human too. Okay. So, in wrapping this episode up, I think it's been a wonderful episode. But in wrapping this up, I'd like to say, on behalf of Lisa, whenever we met, I didn't know anything about her profession. She was just extremely down to earth, very, very easy on the eyes, had a phenomenal conversation. It was very intriguing. And then throughout the course of our relationship, I eventually learned of her occupation, but as she said, it didn't change anything, you know?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
just a beautiful person, honey.
Thank you.
So, again, we'd like to thank you guys for joining us this evening. Another segment of the Saying Yes Again podcast. Are men afraid of dating powerful, strong, significant women? Anything you'd like to say, baby? We're concluding our
No, this
podcast.
was a great podcast. Thank you for, taking the lead on this and
No problem at
yeah,
all.
and
Thank you.
having and suggesting this as a topic actually, 'cause this is your suggestion.
My suggestion. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that? I think it would be. I think it'd be very strategic for us to have maybe a part two, honey.
Yeah, I'm
You
I'm looking
know?
forward to that. I think it's important for, me to maybe talk about like you started to sort of mention a little bit, how
Yeah.
does it feel for professional women in the dating arena? But then what are some challenges that we have that we can sort of
Mm,
address and change when we
yes.
are, dating
Yes. Yes.
and
Wonderful.
how we show up
Wonderful.
in our relationships?
Exactly. So as you professional women and gentlemen out there in South Africa, Europe, Canada, United States, UK, all throughout the world, as you've heard, we're going to do a part two so that Dr. Lisa can expound on this.
Yes.
She actually sits in that seat. So I think she knows a little bit about how professional women feel. So until the next time, we want you guys to continue to grow, keep loving, and continue to say yes, but also subscribe to our podcast. We are on all social media platforms.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure that you subscribe, be a part of our community, and we
Yes.
look forward to seeing you again next week. Don't
Yes.
forget to say yes again to all things love, life, and second chances.
Correct. Thank you.